This actually should be given as a news flash. This is the third time in the last month that an instructor has wished that he had a life's illustration of the principle that Paul faced when he began to introduce the gospel of Christ to a tradition-bound, legalistic, law-abiding, and fear-driven and fear-based church was confronted with a gospel of Christ that was so freely available and dependent only on grace, faith, and Christ alone. Paul was criticized as being an instigator that would cause a rampant amount of sin to abound in the church because of the removal of the fear associated with loss of forgiveness and loss of salvation, as was engendered in the message of legalistic law performance-based gospel. So I had a similar example when I went into practice in a small town in Texas and realized that there was a high concentration of diamondback rattlesnakes in this vicinity. So I began to educate myself on the treatment and medical management of snakebite injuries and wounds. Coming from the Midwest, I had no experience in this, so I quickly educated myself, and then was quite amazed to find out that our hospital, even though it was in a high concentration of rattlesnakes in the vicinity, we didn't even carry the anti-venom in the emergency room. And that decision had been made previously by the medical staff because no one on the medical staff wanted to treat rattlesnake bites, and they thought if they didn't have the antivenom, they wouldn't be held responsible for treating them, so they'd have to refer the rattlesnake bites on. But of course, unfortunately, if you're the patient who's been bitten, that leads to the exhaustion of critical time and the increased incidence of complications and even the increased incidence of a lethal consequence. So this was totally unacceptable to me, so I petitioned the hospital and the board, and they immediately got the anti-venom that I had asked for in the ER, and now our ER was fully capable of administering immediate access upon treating a patient with a rattlesnake bite, the anti-venom, which would be curative and would completely absolve them of any complications if administered quickly, appropriately, and combined with other appropriate measures. Well, along with this, I also found that the way the community had been educated on snake bites was to scare the daylights out of them. The educational program involved showing gory details of badly infected arms and legs, and missing arms and legs, and amputated arms and legs, and abscessed arms and legs that had gruesome surgical procedures. And the scare tactic was to engender fear into the public about being bitten by a rattlesnake, and hopefully they'd avoid getting snake bit. Well, the incidence of snake bites in our community hospital had been unchanged over a number of years, so whatever the intent was, it was not working because there was no change in rattlesnake bite incidence. Well, I decided, since we had the antivenom, that I would take over the community education part of it. So I went to the community and completely reversed fields and presented them a gospel of being treated with rattlesnake anti-venom upon the need after a bite, which would give them instantaneous cure for their bite wound and injury, save life and limb, and they would not have to suffer the consequences of the injury. This went over very well in the community. I avoided all aspects of the gory slides and pictures and the fear-based and fear-driven philosophy that had been used before, and spoke nothing but the truth about the phenomenal biological capabilities that were now available in the new antivenom. The medical staff was not very pleased with me when they found out that I was educating the public this way, and as Paul was accused, I was also accused of making the treatment for snake bite so easy that in short order our emergency room would be inundated with a massive amount of numbers of people coming in from all over the countryside and surrounding counties with their snake bites, which no one chose to treat. So I decided to monitor this over a period of a few years, and the 4 to 6 years that I monitored this, there in fact was not an increased incidence of bite injuries that came into our emergency room. There was actually a decrease in the incidence of snake bites, and the ones that did come in had fewer complications and fewer needs for significant surgical intervention because of the early institution of the treatment and cure in the administration of the antivenom. So it was very instructive to me to recollect that as I was hearing the rendition of Paul facing the church of his day with a similar situation. I hope you choose to go to a hospital that carries rattlesnake venom in the event that you get snake bit, because you'll have an instant cure for your bite. And even more importantly, I hope you choose the gospel of Christ, which is free, equally available to all, and it is based on grace alone, faith alone, and Christ alone, and will give you complete freedom and an immunization to the effects of sin. And because of the love and grace engendered in that message in the gospel of Christ, you will decrease your sin and decrease your rejection of God on the basis of your commitment and love to Him based on the love that He's shown to you. God bless you, and I hope this has been instructive.